we try to sponsor different events with where we can introduce the local Philadelphia community to different fair trade brands and different fair trade businesses, and really try to encourage more fair trade consumption. And that's something that we think we can be doing from the consumer side. So we've done special series like this before where we've invited speakers. Some of you might have attended previously. Last year around this time, we invited Ethan Frisch from Burlap and Barrel Spices, and he gave a nice presentation about the fair trade spice industry. And this year we're looking forward to speaking with Bena and learning about her journey in creating a fair trade apparel company. As many of you know, we also sponsor the Fair Trade Buying Club, and that is really the targeted way we can try and support a lot of these different fair trade businesses. So what that entails is the group comes together and does a group bulk purchase, where when we do a group bulk purchase together, we get a little bit of a discount. So we pass that discount on to all the participants, and it makes it hopefully a more accessible way to get more people involved in purchasing from fair trade businesses. So we have more information about that coming up after the talk. So we'll definitely want you to stay tuned and hear more about that. But there's no one better than to hear about the products and the business from than the founder themselves. So I think without further ado, we'll turn over the floor to Bena, and we're looking forward to learning a lot more about Maggie's from you.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, great introduction, and hello, everyone. And thanks, Rachel, for all the technical help. I'm Bena Burda, and I founded Maggie's back in 1992. And before I get rolling, I just want to acknowledge all of you for being here. I think the fact that you're involved in Fair Trade Philadelphia and that you're really doing such great work at educating yourselves and other people. You know, the world's a pretty tough place right now, and just to be involved in making the world a better place for all the workers in the world, I'm in much admiration of each of you for taking the time to do that. So thanks for the role you play. I guess if I can get my screen to share and go down, which it's not doing. Hang on one second. I'm in slideshow and I can't get my PowerPoint to move. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
So first off, does anybody know what this flower is? Just blurt it out if you're on mute. This is a cotton flower. Cotton flowers are among the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen, and they oftentimes grow purple and then turn yellow before harvest. And I've just always, every spring when I'm in the field, I really enjoy seeing them. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my story of being an unlikely entrepreneur and my path of discovery from cotton to finished product in the world of apparel. For me, it all started not by traveling the world and meeting marginalized workers. It actually started on a bean field in my home state of Michigan. This is an area of the thumb of Michigan, and this is Ernie Fordos, and he gave me my first fair trade lesson, really. He grew about 150 acres of colored beans in Michigan, and he taught me about crop rotation. He taught me originally about regenerative agriculture. And the first time I stepped into an organic field, I sunk into the tops of my shoes, and I got this real rush of energy. And I've toured many people on cotton fields or just organic farms of all types in the years that ensued. And I've had a similar reaction from almost every person I've ever taken through an organic field. So if you haven't traveled to an organic farm, put that on your bucket list, because you'll feel what working with nature does. So Ernie taught me all about right livelihood. And as soon as I learned how organic farmers were true stewards of the earth, I was hooked and I couldn't wait to tell the world. And about 10 years later, I found myself still working with organic farmers, this time in the world of corn. This is an organic blue corn harvest in Texas, the high plains of Texas. I was still in the food business, and I was working for a company that did amongst the first blue corn chips ever marketed. This was like in 1990. And back in 1990, you know, if you went to a really hip Super Bowl party, you got fed blue corn chips in a bowl and everybody pointed their fingers and laughed at him because nobody knew anything about ancient grains. Nobody really understood that corn grows in all these different colors. And it was kind of this hip trendy thing. So we started marketing the chips and they were doing very well. But then we started incurring this problem. And that was that when we harvested the corn out of the field, as you can see on this truck, it was this dark, rich blue color. But as we held the corn in silos at the point of production, as we manufactured fresh masa corn chips, so we wanted the most fresh corn we could, so we held all the corn in the silos. And when we went to produce them, the longer they had been in the silos, the lighter the color became. So this dark, rich colored corn turned into this really not very appetizing gray corn. So by the end of the crop season, we were actually selling gray chips and not blue chips. And it was hard enough to sell blue food. So we had to figure out a way to fix this. So on the inspection trip that year, I met with the farmer and said, hey, is there something you can do in the field that will help the corn keep its color, this rich blue color? And Farmer Jim got a gleam in his eye and said, I can fix the problem for you. I know exactly what to do. So I kind of checked it off my list and went to the next problem. And what Jim decided to do was plant 200 acres in cotton the season before he grew the corn. So those of you who understand organic agriculture, true organic farmers don't grow the same crop in the same field every year, right? They rotate crops. And that was kind of my second lesson in real fair trade and right livelihood, because Jim knew something. He was like onto something. He knew that each product, each crop in a field takes nutrients out of that field, but it also leaves certain nutrients in the field. And he had this theory that if he put cotton into his 3-year crop rotation, it would help his corn crop. So he called me up that spring and said, this experiment's working, the cotton's growing. And I said, okay, great. Maybe we'll have better blue corn next year. And then he called me about a month later and said, you know, I'm going to yield a harvest out of this cotton. And I said, congratulations. And he said, well, you need to sell it for me because you sell what I grow. See, I grow it, you sell it. And I said, Jim, I sell food. And he said, yeah, I get that. But Bena, it's organic cotton, because he was certified. And I said, yes, so what? You still can't eat it. And that's when I and a partner started researching cotton. And we were the generation of blue jeans and t-shirts. And we found out that this natural fiber we had been wearing all our lives wasn't so natural after all. This is a crop duster in a field in Texas. Well, many of the pesticides used on cotton are sprayed from a crop duster. And as you can kind of see in this picture, very little of what you actually spray gets onto the crop that you intend it to get onto. It drifts, the wind takes it. So it drifts into those trees behind the field. It drifts onto farm workers in neighboring fields. We actually had farmers decertified because they had chemical drift from other fields that they didn't even apply the pesticide to. So that's when I started this research project. And the more I researched about cotton, the more I realized that it wasn't the fiber that I thought it was. Whoops. So these are just a few of the things that I discovered. Can everyone see that? If you can't see it, let me know. Okay. So cotton, if you take all the world's cultivated land, cotton is grown on about 3 to 5% of that land, but it uses 10% of the Earth's pesticides every year and 23 to 25% of the Earth's insecticides every year. It was mind-blowing to me. I didn't ever think about it. Cotton is the second most pesticide-laden crop in the world. Coffee's number 1, cotton's number 2, tobacco's number 3. And the implications of just getting pesticides out of those 3 crops, we could save almost 3/4 of the pesticides created and used in the world today. So the deeper I got, the more really upset I became. Clothing production in cotton is called the world's dirtiest industry. Why? Because of the volume of chemicals that are used, not just during growing, but during all the post-harvest processing steps as well. And I'll walk you through a little of that in a minute. And 5 of the top 9 pesticides used on cotton are classified by the Environmental Protection Agency as probable carcinogens. Not possible carcinogens, but probable. So now the next thing that we discovered, so of course we bought all of Jim's cotton. In fact, we prepaid for his cotton before we had a clue what we were going to make out of it. And then we started researching clothing production. How do you take this raw stuff from the field right here and get it to be made into a sweater or a shirt or a pair of socks? And the more we research that clothing, that convoluted process, there's like 5 to 6 different steps to get this to turn into this. And they occur at huge factories, many of them, and they occur in different states, in our case, in different countries, often on different continents. And there are workers involved at every stage that get exposed to all of these terrible toxins. So I'm going to walk you through the basic steps. This is cotton harvesting. If you've never been in a cotton field and you've never harvested cotton, believe me, I've done it, and it's one of the worst jobs ever. I mean, the field trash pricks at your fingers, you get cuts under your skin. It's, of course, glaringly hot generally, and you're grabbing the usable fiber away from these stiff stems and leaves and field trash. And then it gets sent to a gin. We've probably all heard of Eli Whitney and the cotton gin. So ginning is a mechanical process, and it's where the middle part that you can use of the fiber gets removed from the seeds and the field trash. And by the way, 2/3 of what you remove isn't usable in clothing. So that 2/3, that field trash, is a huge portion of the harvest. So of course, my first questions were, well, what do you do with the 2/3 that doesn't get into clothing? So it gets sent to dairy farmers because it helps add butter fat to dairy. And it gets sent to beef farmers because it helps marble beef. So now we're taking these insanely toxic chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, in their most concentrated form, because if you know anything about spraying defoliants, chemicals on field, the pesticides tend to go toward the external part of the fiber and the internal part, the seeds. So we're taking these most toxic chemicals ever created by man, by humankind, in their most concentrated form, and we're sending them into products that end up being high-end ice creams that have more butter fat than other ice creams, and marbled cuts of beef that are the most expensive cuts that there are. Again, more startling data. From ginning, we go to spinning, and that's where it's a very industrial, huge plants do spinning. That's where the cotton fiber, the usable fiber, gets turned into yarn. And that's yarn, whether you're knitting at home and you're knitting socks at home, or whether it's thin yarn that we use in sweaters and in tops and in socks. I've worked with probably about 20 different spinners during the course of my 29 years in this industry. I've been to one facility that was unionized. The rest of these facilities, it requires a lot of capital investment. So there's a lot of workers and they're not very well paid in general. From spinning, we knit fabric. You can knit fabric or weave fabric, and this is the next process. And these facilities are generally smaller and they're more family-run facilities. But again, they're not unionized more than likely, and it's backbreaking work for everybody who works there. From knitting, you get into wet finishing or dyeing, and that's where we get the brilliant colors of the clothing we wear. So cotton, and this is where most of the chemicals in the post-harvest production process are added to the fiber. Cotton is oily. It's a very oily fiber or nutrient. And when you add, what is dye stuffs? Dye stuffs are water-based. So what happens when you add water and oil together? They repel each other, right? So up to 60% of what you put on cotton in the form of dyes ends up in the groundwater. When you're dealing with all these carcinogens and mutagens, that ends up in groundwater. I've seen studies that have said that there's groundwater contamination from clothing production in 39 states in the country. We don't even make that much clothing in the United States anymore. So for there to be that much groundwater contamination from this industry is mind-boggling. And by the way, those are our tie-dyed socks. Those are done with that's not a typical dye process. We hand dye those and hand cure them. That's what makes their vibrant colors. And those are obviously we only use low impact dyes in our processing. So from dyeing, you finally get into cutting and sewing. And this is the part of the production chain that you've all heard so much about. We've all heard about sweatshops. We've all heard about women being treated subhuman. Well, when I first got into this business, I was, again, outraged by what I saw. All my contacts in the US, I was mostly making t-shirts and things that were simple garments. And I started having terrible production problems, orders being delivered late and many production mistakes, sloppy sewing, labels not being sewn right. I think we've all had the experience of shopping when you pull something off a rack that is supposed to be high end and nice, and you find flaws in it. You find, seams that aren't right and all sorts of problems. Well, I was having those problems too. And yet I was working with t-shirt places in the United States that had 400, 500, 600 workers, and they were just designed to manufacture t-shirts quick. And I was supplying them with my own cotton, my own yarn, my own fabric, oftentimes my own labels, and even my own boxes, but I couldn't get orders done on time. And when I did get orders, I had all these flaws. I had skipped stitches and really poor construction. So I started spending more and more time in the factories. And that's when I learned that everything I had heard, the rumors I had heard about sewing conditions, were not even half of what I saw. I mean, they were way worse than I saw. Who sews all the clothes we wear right now? It's women. It's 90% of the people in these factories are women in this country and in most other countries. If there are men in the factories, they run those cutting equipment like this gentleman's doing in the middle here, or they're the bosses. And the women are paid by the piece generally. Piecework is notorious in this industry throughout the world. What happens when you're paid by the piece? If you get trained to be a sleeve setter, somebody who sews the sleeves in a t-shirt, you want to be a sleeve setter the rest of your life because you get really skilled at it and you get really quick at it. And if you're paid by the piece, you make more money. Your kids eat better if you keep doing the same job year after year, month after month. So what happens to people, and oftentimes these women are single heads of households, and they're just trying to basically fill their children full of food. They're trying to raise their kids and give them a better, world. So what happens to the people who do the same physical labor week after week, month after month, year after year? They develop all sorts of body issues, right? Their shoulders get bad, their arms get bad, their fingers get bad. It wasn't unusual for me to see 38, 39-year-old women start forcibly exiting some of these facilities because they just got so beaten up by doing the same physical labor week after week, year after year, that they were no good to the factories anymore. So after learning all of this and realizing that we had this cotton that we had to tell the world about, how to convert as many acres to organic as possible, I knew we had to find a different way. And by this time I had bought my partner out. We were making socks. We've always made all of our socks in the US, and we're very proud of that. And we're keeping about 3 knitters right now in business and 1 dyer from our contracts. So these are small facilities in the US. We're able to exercise pretty much control over what they do. They're not union factories. They're family owned generally, but at least we're a big enough customer that we can have influence over them. And then we started making t-shirts, and that's where I learned the really dirty little story secret of who sews all the clothes we wear. So we knew after doing this, I knew that I couldn't call myself a sustainable organization if I couldn't really sustain the lives of the workers at the factories. So I knew we had to find a different way. And at that point in time, we found an NGO, a non-government organization in Nicaragua. We were starting also to lose a lot of contractors in the US to bankruptcy. They were moving to Mexico. They were moving to Central America. They ended up moving to Africa. And then Africa became unable to compete in the apparel industry, and everything ended up moving over to the Far East. And most of the clothes today that we wear are made in China and Vietnam still. So we met this NGO, this non-government organization in Nicaragua. Nicaragua is the second poorest country in the hemisphere. And we basically said to them, and they were trying to find employment for 10,000 victims of Hurricane Mitch, for refugees from the hurricane. And of course, these people did not want charity, like most people I've met in the world. They don't want charity. They want good paying jobs. They want to be able to prove themselves. So we said to the NGO, if you can build a facility where people aren't paid by the piece and where every worker has a vested interest in our product and in what they make, then we'll give you every sewing contract that we have left. So that's when we came up with this, they came up with this concept of a worker-owned cooperative, and we helped to have these women build their own building. They were amazing. They did the physical work themselves, and they put together a worker-owned cooperative. And that was our first trial at what would it be like for every worker to have a voice and have a vote in what she or he is paid and what she or he does for a living. And this cooperative was doing fabulously well for several years, and through a lot of different things, different events that I can't go into too much detail tonight because it would take too long. This co-op is not even functioning any longer, but it taught me a lesson about what we could do and how workers could sew way beyond their training and their quote unquote ability if we could just level the playing field for them and give them an opportunity. So after that, we said, well, if this experiment worked in Nicaragua where people are desperately poor, could we make it work somewhere else? And that's when we inspired a group of workers from Guatemala who live in Western North Carolina to start their own cooperative. And that cooperative has become Opportunity Threads. I don't know if any of you have heard of them. We started them, back in, I think, 2007 with sock monkeys. Why did we start sock monkeys? Because we had made all of our socks in the US, and we make a lot of socks, and our socks, we get a lot of slight irregular socks. They're not trash. They're not worth throwing away or donating, but they're not quite up to the standards that people expect when they buy Maggie socks. So we started this project, and they, lo and behold, turned it into this whole endeavor, started making a whole bevy of animals. This is the group when they first started in 2007, Opportunity Threads, with their kids. They made a bunch of other animals besides sock monkeys, penguins, and all sorts of things. And then this is them 12 years later. They're still functioning. They're sewing for over 20 brands now. We are a very small part of their business, which is really kind of exciting. And they're providing gainful employment with intro salaries at over $15 an hour now. And all of the worker owners have been able to they've started a revolving loan fund, and they've been able to purchase homes and really help their community, start a recycling cooperative, all sorts of things. So the experiment to me, though, of giving workers, leveling the playing field for workers and giving them all a voice and a vote in what they do, it worked for a while in Nicaragua, and then it failed. It worked in North Carolina, and it's still going strong. I still totally believe in the model. We have not been able to continue it in other parts of the world. So we're not working with cooperatives, we're working with small family-run businesses, just like we do here. This is a company in Peru. They started with this many workers that are in this picture. I think it was 5 or 6 when we started with them. Last I knew, they had 50 or 60 workers, and they're just going great guns as well, have moved twice and really done very well for themselves. And then we started experiencing challenges that now are on everyone's lips, but at the time we started first experiencing, nobody would really listen to us about it. And that was obviously the effects on small scale farmers of climate change. This is a cotton field in Peru, 2 years apart, 2015, when they had a record harvest, and the same field 2 years later when they had just experienced the worst drought they had had for 30 years. And right after that drought, when we started raising money to get them potable water, they were underwater by 4 months later. So climate change has kind of sent us around the world. We now contract in India with 2 farmer groups that are cooperatives to get our cotton, and we contract in Tanzania in Africa. we're not that big of a company for us to have to share split our contracts around the world just to make sure that we can rely on a harvest every year is disparaging, to say the least. So climate change is real. It's happening with more and more regularity, as we all know now, because we're experiencing ourselves in this country. But small scale farmers are truly being affected much more than anyone else that I've met. And so I want to mention one other thing about the idea of a supplier becoming a customer and a customer becoming a supplier. We started, and this is just one example, but it's something I'm excited about, even though we haven't been able to bring it to fruition yet. This is Burkina Faso, and we started working with Catholic Relief Services. I don't know if any of you know them, but they do on the ground work in 50 to 70 different countries around the world. We started working with them because they proposed to us making a sock for them to support one of their programs. It was a program that the Pope did on immigrants, communities, and it was called Love Thy Neighbor. So we made a special sock for them and sold it through our website and helped them market it to their diocese, et cetera. And along the way, found out that they were working on this startup program with these farmers in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is in West Africa, if people don't know. They were working with them to develop these incredible cotton harvests. So we helped them find a spinner. We did a lot of testing with them. We have one of their products in our bevy of products right now, which is a handmade knapsack that we just sell to try to donate money back to their community. But we've now gotten a spinner in Burkina Faso spinning their cotton. They're doing amazing work with local companies, selling them woven yarn for woven cloth with these gorgeous African prints on them, which are amazing, but they've still not gotten cotton that we can use. We need a specific type of cotton for our socks, which is ring spun cotton, and we need it combed, and they haven't been able to get combers yet. But it's just an example of how symbiotically we are working as a supplier to this group, and now they're working as a supplier to us. These are just a few of the faces behind our labels today. These are some farmers in Tanzania down here with their 100-pound harvested cotton on their shoulders. Amazing. This is a handmade scarf, black print scarf that we do in India. This is a woman in North Carolina who's making our wool socks. These are the women in Burkina that are making the bags that we sell. These are our sheep. And this is another of our dyers in the US. And this woman works at Opportunity Threads. So it's a struggle. It's been a struggle for 29 years. It'll probably be a struggle for the next 29. We've lost many, unfortunately, contractors to bankruptcy, and people gone out of business. Spinners have gone out of business. Knitters have gone out of business. Sewers, obviously. We haven't realized our dream of having a vertical supply chain that is worker owned. It's still a dream of mine that I may not see in my lifetime, but hopefully our company will. And we couldn't do it without the people who support us. So I think we pride ourselves on listening to our suppliers and trying to make their lives as easy as possible, having them help develop our products with us, and just leveling the playing field. This is not about charity. This is about people who just want to do something good with their lives and make decent remuneration for it. These are some of our products now. We've expanded a lot the last few years. We've gotten into sweaters, as I mentioned. We've gotten into home goods. These are 100% organic cotton throws and pillowcases. We have a line of basics, that basic apparel for men and women now that we call essentials. And those are just $22, retail, simple things. Leggings are our second best-selling product. And those are those hand block printed scarves from India. So that's kind of what I had to say tonight. I guess the story of my career, anyway, is summed up in this quote from a Canadian novelist: "There are no wrong turnings, only paths we had not known we were meant to walk." I feel like what I did with my career was just uncover a lot of things that were not so fun to uncover and try and tell the truth about them and try and build a business around them. So I thank you for your time. And if anyone has questions, feel free.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that. And if anyone wants to either unmute themselves and ask a question or put it in the chat and we could read it out.
And maybe desktop sharing might be now done, probably.
Sorry?
So, can we all see everyone?
Hi, Guru.
Yeah, Rachel, if we could stop doing the full screen share on Bena's presentation and just kind of see everyone now, I think.
That would be great.
Yeah.
How's that?
Perfect. Perfect.
I think I can close this, mate.
Well, Bena, thank you very much for sharing everything that we just discussed. I think you have a pretty interesting, incredible business model. And it sounds like you work with a bunch of moving pieces in terms of a bunch of different suppliers, which sounds incredibly complex and certainly more difficult than having your own vertically integrated supply chain. So that is, I think, a real testament to all of the relationships you've been able to build and manage to maintain the relationships with all these suppliers.
Well, you know what's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, continue. Please.
I was just going to say what's interesting about the apparel industry is that nobody really has a vertically self-owned supply chain. I mean, companies as big as Nike, everybody contracts, right? That's what the business is all about. And when you hear these stories of subcontractors, that's where a lot of the abuses occur. A lot of large companies will say, well, you know, I know my first line factories are doing the right thing and paying fair wages and all that stuff, but what percentage of their product line is actually made by their first line factories versus subcontractors? Even Department of Labor studies in this country, there's still a lot of little shops in LA. LA is a garment center. I think they've done studies that are like over half of them are subcontractors who aren't even registered with the Department of Labor. So this is where, as fair trade citizens that we are trying to be and advocates, we need to kind of go beyond the label and see what's really going on. You know, but yes, thanks for acknowledging that we know we can't do it all. We don't have any desire to own our own factories. We just want to partner with people who we know we can trust to do the right thing. And is that possible 100% of the time? Absolutely not. you know, but we do the best we can, and we work with kind of these mid-range suppliers who are not super big and not super teeny either. And we try to get to know them as intimately as we can.
And that was kind of going to be one of my first questions is, so when you do go out and scout your supplier network, what kinds of things are you asking or engaging your suppliers on to make sure that they also adhere to the values that you have? And what does that kind of audit process look like for you?
So that's a really good question. I mean, we do our own questionnaires that we fill out where we ask what's the lowest paid worker make, what's the highest paid worker, right? What's your policy on overtime, all that sort of stuff. We audit their books. We are certified by World Fair Trade Organization, who does their audit of, I think it's a square root. I don't know how they determine how many of your packers, how many of the people you work with, they audit every year. And they go in and do their thing. But I always, when I'm training people who work at my company, I'm always like, the first thing you do is you take a tour with the manager or owner of this facility, and you see one-on-one how each worker reacts when you walk by. Because, and it may sound silly, but to me, you can tell how a worker is treated by the way they react when you're being toured around a facility. And if you see people divert their eyes and walk away, or put their head down, or never be spoken to, or never speak back, that's a clear indication that they're not being treated well. When you see workers who stand up, question, show you things, talk to the person who's touring you around. That's my cardinal rule number one that shows, how they're treated. And you go as often as you can. You interact with more than just the bosses or the managers or the supervisors. You interact with people on the production floor, constantly. And I don't know, and you go there as often as you can. Those are the things that we do. What?
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I mean, I should also confess, I work for B Lab, or the company behind the B Corp certification.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm familiar, and it was interesting to hear how you do that with your suppliers. The second question, and then I'd be curious to hear from others, is, obviously we're a small organization and we certainly want to be able to help bring Maggie's to more market and to more consumers. But do you have any other substantial distribution contracts to help get Maggie's to a bigger audience? Are there any stores that we might know of, or are you mostly working with independent retailers right now to get the socks out?
So we do sell to natural product stores still primarily, and we work with cooperatives, NCG cooperatives on a national basis. I don't know, frankly, I'm not in sales anymore, so I've lost touch with a lot of what we do, but we do big programs with all the storefront co-ops around the country every year, and they can either belong to NCG or not belong to NCG. Certainly we work with people that are in it and out of it. We do work with Whole Foods on a regional basis, not national basis, with varying degrees of success. And we sell to other chain stores like that, like Natural Grocers, which is Vitamin Cottage, which is out in Colorado. We're now selling to Wegmans grocery store. I'm trying to think of places that would be closer to you.
I think I've seen like Mom's Organic.
Mom's Market sells our stuff. Yeah, good point. And a lot of independents, a lot of, boutiques. We sell to about 1,400 stores around the country, and that's about 70% of our sales. Excuse me. And then we sell to distributors as well. Like we are selling to Amazon through a distributor now. We have ethical issues with that on a regular basis. We discuss, do we want to increase that sales? I mean, it gets us places that we wouldn't be otherwise, or do we not want to work with them? And then we sell on our website. So
the same conversation has come up with Equal Exchange and them grappling with the ethics of trying to get to a bigger market, but going on to Amazon. So it seems to be a conversation with other fair trade brands as well.
There's a company called Earth Hero. I don't know if you all have heard of them, but they're kind of trying to be the ethical alternative to Amazon. And they've actually done really well with our product line, especially when they promote it and such. I think they're based in Colorado, but so there are people trying to kind of deal with that marketplace in a more responsible way.
Great. Rachel, do you see any questions from the chat room or anyone from the floor?
I can read a few. There were a few comments, not questions necessarily, but I'll read those out and then we'll see if there are any other questions after that. So Mariana from Media Fair Trade Committee said, I love your socks, have been using them for a while. Thank you on behalf of all fair trade advocates. And she had to take off, but she thanks you there. And then Ira said, I'm sleeping on Maggie's sheets these days and love them, which is great. Then Lisa said, thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. Best of luck with you and your endeavors.
Thank you.
So
we just started with vetting this year. We work at a factory in Calcutta, India, which is the biggest facility we've ever worked at. And I was really, first of all, I was not wild about going to India. I really wanted to keep our stuff in this hemisphere, but it just became so challenging. And then I met this gentleman who owns this factory, and he's got 3 unions, 3 to 4, depending on the year, representing every worker at his factory. So he kind of won me over. And he also has a direct relationship with Chetna, which is the group of organic growers in India that grow cotton that really meet our standards. There's 2 groups in India we work with, and I don't know if you all keep track of this, but a lot of the organic cotton in India, which is the second or first biggest producer of organic cotton in the world, was decertified this year because they actually found that it was decertified for organic, not for fair trade, because they actually found that that certificates were being bogus. I mean, they were reusing certificate numbers, 80% of the people selling organic cotton in India. So it's been a really frightening experience for me to be in India. But once we started working with his factory in Calcutta, I felt like we should try to work with them because I believe in them, mainly because they don't just have one union. They have 3 or 4 unions at a time. And I feel like they have a lot more bargaining power, but it's the biggest factory we've ever worked at. And when you add up all the workers, there's 2,000 people involved. And that's really frightening for somebody like me who tries to keep control of, what's really going on at these factories. So anyway, that's how we got into bedding, is they had this whole bedding line going. And we said, well, let's try and do it. We did bedding years ago to kibbutz in Israel, but we couldn't. There were complications and we couldn't keep that going. So I'm glad somebody's sleeping on our sheets. Makes me happy.
Yeah, that's great.
We have a question.
Yes. I will ask you to unmute so you can say your question.
Yes, hi. Thank you much for this incredible presentation. It's really special work that's going on, which I think a lot of us didn't know about. My question's related to environment. Obviously, there's a lot of attention of addressing the climate crisis and the recent COP conference in Glasgow. So it occurred to me that once you get out all these pesticides and chemicals you talked about, there's a lot less fossil fuel use in the way this cotton's being raised. And I also wondered if cotton itself is a natural store, if it's part of carbon sequestration. So part of it's just an informational question. Part of it is wondering if it might be a way to help market your product and give it more attention, because there is such a focus now in the world on addressing climate crisis. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. Great comment. Yeah, cotton. Are you all aware of the regenerative organic standard that's now being touted as kind of the beyond organic standard? I don't know. To me, we're working with, actually the Chetna group in India will have some regenerative organic cotton, which the standard is really tough to meet. It's new and it involves carbon sequestration. Like that's a big part of the recommendation of the standard and what you have to do to get it. We're going to have the first regenerative organic cotton this spring. It won't be enough to put in all of our products, but at least there will be some. And yes, there's a lot of talk around this whole issue of carbon sequestration. I've been in the industry long enough that I feel like the regenerative organic standard is really what organics started out as back in the day. It's just that as the organic world has ballooned up and gotten so corporatized, I didn't even know that farmers weren't rotating crops anymore. Organic farmers aren't even rotating crops anymore. And that's why when I talk to people, I usually say, well, true organic farmers are stewards of the earth and they don't grow the same crop in the same field every year. But apparently a lot of these factory farms, they do. So they just do the bare minimum and they're not sequestering carbon. So yeah, I think there's so much more work to do around that. And hopefully there are people smarter than I working on it. Did that answer your question or comment? Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. That was, thanks. I kind of had a similar question, but since you mentioned regenerative cotton, I wanted to ask about recycled cotton. Is there, since there's so much virgin cotton and you're struggling to find suppliers for organic virgin cotton, what's your personal take on recycled cotton? And then from an organization and an industry point of view, are there opportunities for you to use recycled cotton?
We have not used recycled cotton ever. And the reason is when we researched it, it was I don't want to say a scam, but it wasn't post-consumer. Most of it was just industrial waste. So it was kind of a way to take what wasn't first quality for whatever product you were making, and it's a shorter staple usually, or it's just chopped finer. And so it'll make a thick or not as soft product, and you can blend it. But there are many people, I'm not an expert on it. And I know that if we could grow the organic cotton world large enough that we could have organic recycled, then we'd be all over it. But to use just recycled cotton, I feel like, well, there's a big problem, especially in this country, with new transitional cotton. There's a shortage of organic cotton in the world right now, even though organic cotton still in the world, I know, represents less than 1% of the cotton used in the world today. So we're 20 years, 30 years into this industry, and we're still less than 1%. We're not very significant. But I know that we should all be working on a transitional program in the United States. And right now, the USDA doesn't have any way to claim transitional cotton and pay the farmers more for it than you would pay for just, normal conventional cotton. So there's a 3-year, organic standards require 3-year conversion process, right? So during those 3 years, if a farmer's not using pesticides, generally that's when their yields are going to be really low. That's when they really need help in the form of more money being paid for their crop. But if you can't claim it on a label, then you can't use it. And I think that's what's forced or put a lot of people in the position of using recycled cotton instead, because they want to make some sort of eco claim, but they don't want to go all the way. Does that make sense? So, but I'm not the be all expert on what's going on with recycled cotton right now because we haven't used it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments in the chat or from anyone else?
I have a couple questions for you all.
Cool. I have one more question for you though before you
okay.
go. What's the price premium on organic cotton over organic fair trade over conventional cotton?
Yeah, so usually it's around 15%, but that's so flawed because cotton grows in so many different countries, and there's certain countries like Peru where the government sets a annual price for cotton each year based on the climate, based on the growing season, based on, the harvest. And then buyers will come in and just pay a 15% premium above that. But if they don't publish that price until right before harvest. So if it's been a year of shortage, then the government price will go way up. And a lot of times farmers will dump their organic onto the conventional market because they can make more money at it. Does that make sense? And so, and in India, it's generally 15%, but then like this year when things went sky high, we ended up paying a 20% premium beyond the 15% because the farmers needed it. I mean, they could get it and we needed to pay them more. The most successful plan we've ever done was in Nicaragua. And that's when we had a multi-year contract with the same group of farmers each year. How we do it now is we do a year's projection, say for our basics, and a seasonal projection for our seasonal apparel. And we convert that into how many pounds of cotton does that mean? And then we make a contract through our supplier with the farmers to pay 30% of that as a deposit. And that deposit, covers their growing or their planting costs and usually covers most of their harvest costs. So it gets us in a position where we're sharing the risk. So if they have a poor year, we're out that money as well. And it keeps them knowing that they've got a buyer at the end of the year. So they're not going to be convinced to just dump it on the conventional market or whatever. But a multi-year contract is really what has worked for us the best, because that way the farmers and us determine what is a fair market price for, what are your growing costs? What are your harvest costs? What kind of yields do you think you're going to get? And what premium do you need to live on? And then we come up with a price and we give them that price 3 years in a row. That protects us and protects them. And it was tough when we did that in Nicaragua because if prices went way up, they would say, well, you owe me more money. And I would say, well, if I owe you more money now, then when prices go way down, you're going to have to give me a rebate. But I think that long-term contracts with farmers are the only real thing that's going to get us all away from this commodity trading and with tying the price of organic to the price of conventional, which is where it's at in a lot of places. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah, no, that was good background on that. It's a complex topic, so that's interesting to hear.
And it's
But please,
you know, cotton's so varied because it grows in so many different countries, and each country is really different.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to hear your questions if you have things that you wanted to learn from us as a group.
Well, yeah, I just want to know, have you all shopped for organic clothing before and fair trade clothing? What do you think we need to do collectively as a community to scale it? Like, what prevents you from having your whole closet full of fair trade organic clothing? Or maybe you do. I don't know.
That's a good question.
For me, the first one is price. I think, when you look at a 6-pack of socks from, Target or wherever versus, Maggie's, it is more affordable. And of course, one thing we're trying to do with our buying club is to kind of do this collective group purchasing power where we can, kind of come in and almost in the same way that you are a group, setting that kind of prepayment or pre-group purchase with your suppliers, we would like to try and get more consumers to be able to come in as a group and help that. And then that can also help lower the prices for us too. And I think that is going to be the big thing, is how do we figure out how to get more consumers to care about this and then, join in with us on the group buying. So far it's happening. We're doing it step by step, and you can see people in the room here are interested. But I think it's also a reflection that you said only 1% of the market, or less than 1% of the market's organic cotton. There's probably less than 1% of the market that's organic consumers, but it would be interesting to hear other voices in this room, to hear, what would make it more compelling to be able. But for me, it's certainly affordability, I think, is one of the top ones.
And just one more question on that, and then if anyone else has comments, does affordability, how does that equate with quality? Like if you can buy, excuse me, 6 pairs of socks at Target for $1 a pair, and ours are $8 a pair, do you take into consideration how long those socks last? Do you,
Yeah.
I don't know. Where does that fall in the?
I think it's I mean, it's a good point. I think it's more like perception of consumers, right? It's about educating. I think, well, part of our job is to educate people, and, right? But that's like, it's a smaller scale, but it is a perception too. It's marketing and perception. Really is. Yeah.
And I would say to that, what you were kind of alluding to is that I think I'm trying to associate and kind of, respect the quality that does come from paying more per pair and that kind of thing. And also, consuming less. I think that's part of it as well, is that part of the reason you consume, a 6-pack of socks from Target at that price is because it enables you to use your leftover income or, for other things and consume more. So I think if we reframe and start, thinking, oh, well, maybe we can consume lower quantity at higher quality, that's, part of the calculus too.
I mean, yes.
I was gonna say that aside from the price, for me personally, sometimes I find the styles to be too I don't know, traditional. I'm going to use the word traditional because, so I grew up in India. I know a lot of times when I'm buying fair trade, it is made by communities in different parts of the world. And there isn't a focus on creating contemporary products that everybody can consume. So style, I think when it comes to socks or sheets or t-shirts, you're fine. But when it comes to going beyond fashion, you don't really find, you do now, but then it's exhausting. That's when price also plays a big role. So I feel like when you're spending so much time on your supply chain and you're spending so much time on ensuring that you're getting the right raw materials and people are getting paid well, you don't focus on design. And
exactly.
yeah, I mean, it's you have to choose. So
Right.
I understand that, but as a consumer, I think that's a problem, and that's where also that's why also marketing. When you're marketing, you're showing so much of, you know, you're playing on this emotional heartstrings of people where you have to care about someone else, when half the people who buy fashion care about looking good.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's something that is important from a industry point of view, to change the perception of the fair trade industry, that, well, there's some people who care about the emotions and care about people and the environment, but unfortunately many of them don't. So how do we balance
They care
that?
about how they look.
Yes. So how do we balance marketing to both those folks?
Yeah. And I think that one of the things we've always said at Maggie's is our job is to connect the people who wear our clothes to the people who make our clothes. Because if those two groups could get to know each other, then a lot of these problems would be solved. And when we first brought the women from the co-op in Nicaragua to one of the green festivals, remember the green festivals? I don't know. Anyway, this woman from the co-op, the president of the co-op, Yadira, had just spoken, and she was getting applause, and she was a celebrity, and she was a star, and she came back to our booth where we were selling her clothing. And I said to this woman who was trying on something we had made, oh, and this is Yadira, and she's the president of the co-op, and she made it. And the woman went, how does my butt look in this? He literally looked in the mirror and said, does this make me look fat, or how does my butt? Oh, and Yadira came off the stage as a celebrity, ready to shake this woman's hand because she was feeling so spectacular. And she heard that comment and she just kind of sunk. And I said to her later, that's your best lesson in fair trade. This woman really cares about you, really wants your kids to eat well, and wants you to do well as long as her butt doesn't look too big in what you sew. And it's like, that's how we're going to change the world, is if those people who make our clothes meet the people who wear our clothes, and your concerns are answered by them. And it's not just me as a middle person saying, you've got to sew that seam straight, and you've got to make sure, everything's perfect on this garment. You guys have to talk to each other. Wearers have to talk to makers,
Quickly before we get to other people raising their hands, Rachel, I was hoping you could just share the fair trade buying form sign up in the chat, just because I see people having to drop out. So just want to make sure aware of people. We are going to introduce the Fair Trade Buying Club, but if you have to leave early, I just want to make sure the form shows up there so you can sign up to participate through the form. But yeah, I see hands going up. I see Henry. I also want to see Ira, because Ira is definitely one of the original fair trade organic consumers as well. So it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this topic as well. So let's go Ira and then Henry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was a great presentation. And I do remember, I think the Green Fest you're talking about, Bena, was the Co-op America, which is now Green America, used to put on in DC. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did a presentation before for on fair trade there one time.
Nice.
But I'm from Media.
But those were great festivals.
They were great festivals. I'm right outside of Philadelphia in Media, America's first fair trade town. And my perspective, with you asking about the price being higher and the quality. So, I'm in a fair trade town, and I'm out trying to table all the time and talk to restaurants and trying to get them to carry fair trade products and everything. And I always say over and over and over again, you're going to pay a little bit more for it, but it's an excellent product. I have to say that all the time. I say it's, usually fair trade is organic, and you're going to get something that tastes really good. So it's the same thing with clothing. We need to just keep saying that, because it's your products are great. I've been wearing them for years.
Thank you very much. Well, we have to live up to that. Since you're saying that to so many people, the manufacturers, we have to make sure our stuff is good quality, because otherwise you're going to be a liar and they're not going to listen to you. We are a community, and that's the other part about this that's so important for us to recognize. I mean, we're all early adapters, and we're all a community, and we've got to live up to our end of the bargain to support the rest of us. If that makes sense. So thank you.
And I'll just give a little hint to people if they, the Fair Trade Buying Club is going to be great, but also sign up for Maggie's email list. because there's often sales and discounts all the time. So
Yeah. Right now, we're having our biggest sale of the year. No surprise. So, yeah.
I
it is a
think
good
that's when I
deal.
bought my sheets last year when you were doing it.
Very smart. Smart man.
Took them a long time. You had some trouble. It took like 3 months before they arrived,
Oh, yeah, it was.
but that was fine.
Thank you for being patient.
Pandemic craziness, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Henry?
Yep, let's turn to Henry.
Hi there. Thank you for the presentation. I thought it was amazing, and I appreciate the invite, Billy. I wasn't going to come until this morning, so thank you very much. I wanted to ask for the goals that you're trying to achieve with the business. Would it be more impactful for Maggie's Organics to be 10 times as large, or for there to be 10 other companies structured in the same way, pushing for the same things?
Wow.
Does that
Mm-hmm.
do you ever think about that? Do you communicate with competitors and give tips? So yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, we try to, through Fair Trade Federation, where Rachel used to be, work with other companies, like do photo shoots together where we'll do tanks and they'll do skirts or whatever. So we definitely try to refer people to other companies and work with them. And I don't know, right now we're growing at about 20% per year. And that's about as fast as we've ever grown. And that's about as fast as I want to grow. I mean, 10 times our size. Yeah, that'd be great. But wow, it's a struggle to grow at 20%, and I think that, I mean, the entrepreneur in me, of course, wants to branch out and do sheets and bedding and towels and all this other stuff. But in reality, I think a combination of the two. I mean, if we can't be experts in everything, and we certainly have experience spreading our product line too thin and suffering the consequences. So I guess both, but growth for growth's sake, it's just like what I guess Hai was saying earlier about learning how to live with less. Clothes in the world are too cheap. I still believe that. I will believe that until my deathbed. We don't value the workers who make the clothes, the farmers who grow the stuff. So of course we want to pay cheap for our clothing, but a well-fitting garment that is fashionable, that does, make you feel confident and good about yourself, that should last you years. That shouldn't, be something that you plan to be obsolete next season. You want to look good all the time, right? So I don't know. I still feel that it's a combination of everything, and we can't do everything, right? So bring on more people. Yeah. The thing that's frustrating to me, and I'm sure any company our size would say that, is when companies start and they got the whole greenwashing, fair washing thing up their sleeve, and then they pretend to be as fair as the rest of us. And everybody asks me, well, why can't your stuff be that cheap? Or why can't your stuff be, that fashionable and that colorful and that this? And I don't know, it's challenging. I don't know if that answered it, but.
No, definitely. Thank you very much.
All right.
So let's take one or two more comments on this topic, and then we can start talking about the Fair Trade Buying Club and even just looking at some of the products on our forum. But Paul, you raised your hand?
Yes. Switching more from the fashion side to the practical side, which is more where I'm at. I grew up in New England, and I'm old, and I wore flannel shorts, which I absolutely love, way before it became popular with grunge. And there's certain cotton clothes that I just love. On the other hand, in the winter, like socks, I noticed there's wool blends. And one thing that the industry has done is they've incorporated these elaborate chemically based products for durability and stretchability. And with cotton, I do worry about shrinkage. So I guess I'm asking about 4 questions at once, but I wonder if you have blends. I wonder if you could collaborate with someone who does do blends. Like I know there's organic wools, and I wonder what you do about the shrinkage issue, because I know sometimes I get something I absolutely love And unfortunately, I run it through the dryer once and then I hand it down to my son or whatever, somebody smaller.
Yeah. So first off, we incorporated Lycra into our line and nylon into our sock line several years ago. And that is because there are certain man-made fibers that just do perform. We have to use less of them than we would other fibers. Like we used to use natural rubber in all of our socks. Natural rubber doesn't last like Lycra lasts, and you have to use more of it as a percentage of weight in your products to get the same kind of stretch and the same kind of recovery. And it breaks down quicker. So we switched over to Lycra, feeling like we were using this petroleum-based product in our socks and selling out. But in fact, it made our socks last a lot longer. So there's always that juggling act of durability, like you're saying, versus sustainability, right? And now I will say the GOTS standards, do people understand there's a global organic textile standard now? And even though it's a voluntary standard in the US, most of us follow it these days. And it does call for, if you have more than 10% of a synthetic in a product, you have to use a recycled or eco-friendly version of that synthetic, which we haven't run into because we don't have more than 10% yet, but there are certain constructive things that we're working on that are going to take us up to 12%. And that's going to force us into a situation where we're going to have to use regenerated fibers for the rest of the product. So that is pushing the envelope, that got standard, for people to get more involved in using synthetics occasionally, like you're saying, but using them in a constructive way and with a life cycle in mind. And by the way, wool socks, we do make wool socks. We haven't gotten into wool in any other product lines yet, though we're working on it. But the wool that we've used now comes from Germany, and it's grown in Argentina. It's processed in Germany, and we use a special washable wool. It's a washable merino that is a GOTS certified process to get it to be washable. Now, does it last as long as chemical processes to get washable wool? No, but it's really held up a long time for us. And our wool socks are among our best-selling socks anywhere. I mean, if you haven't tried our wool socks, I wear them every day, summer, winter, spring, fall. I mean, they're my favorite socks that we make. And we do have what we do in our socks to help them last longer in our wool socks is we do what's called an intimate blend, where we actually blend 15% nylon in the yarn before we knit the socks. And that has totally changed the durability of our wool socks. Like our wool hiking socks 6, 7, 8 years ago used to fall apart a lot quicker than they do now. So we're always trying to find that delicate balance between using organic fibers and making things last long. That makes sense. Or not shrink, like you're saying.
Thank you. I really appreciate the in-depth of your answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just for Fitzy people, and I did say 7:30 we are gonna stop this program. So we have 15 minutes.
Correct. So what we would like to do now is kind of take a look at the order form for the Fair Trade Buying Club that we were talking about before. And just as a reminder, the Fair Trade Buying Club is how we as members, we come together and we put a bulk order in. And in this case, of course, with Maggie's, and we'll all get some cool fair trade socks for those who want to participate. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to pull up the form on the screen so everyone can take a look, and we'll kind of walk you through it. Bena, it would be lovely if you could just highlight some products on the form and just tell us if there's anything interesting we should know about it, or if you have any favorites or things like that.
30% off. So it's
I know.
better than what I get.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to pull it up. Rachel, as you see, dropped off, unfortunately. She had everything queued up. So we're going to queue it up on our side here. So,
okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So share. Let me see.
Let's see. Give us 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Can everyone see our screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Do we see the order form up there? You do? Okay, great. So what we're looking at here is the main page of the order form, and you'll see at the top, there's a place where you can put your name in, your email address, your phone number, and your address. And this is going to be what we're looking for, just to collect the information. And then, of course, there are items there where you can see the total cost of your order, and then the amount that you're actually saving as well. So you'll get to see how much you're saving by participating in the buying club. Below are some just of the more instructions about how to remit your payment, how to get your order and all that, and we'll go through all that. But I think now the more fun part is let's take a look at some of the products. If you can see at the bottom, there are different tabs, and each tab represents different product categories. I think I'll turn it over to Guru, and you can talk about how the product categories, and Bena, if you want to chime in and share anything too.
Sure.
Okay, so what we are doing is focusing on socks because that's I think last time when we participated as well, they were quite popular with everyone. So we've broken it down into cotton socks, and all the cotton socks that are pretty much all the cotton socks that are on your website are on here. You want to scroll up and down and people can see. Yeah. So to fill this in, we have the size chart on top, and there's links in here too to go to the website and see if you want to get more information, and then you can fill in the quantities that you want and automatically calculate the total, and also reflect on the first sheet, which is the order form. Then we have wool socks.
Yay.
Yes. So, okay, we have socks, the cotton socks. There's sport socks. There's recovery socks.
That's awesome. I didn't know you have so much socks. It's amazing.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. I love socks, by the way.
I am not a sock person, so I'm excited because I'm like, everybody has been telling me that they're great socks. And Rachel said that she was a convert from
all of my socks are now Maggie's organic socks.
So I'm excited. Yeah. So there's also wool socks, and these snuggle socks look really cute. So they'll keep you warm, and they probably make great gifts. So I'm excited about that. We also have some apparel. We have leggings, and so we have some cycling shorts and yoga pants in here.
Yeah.
And for men, I think there's only trunks. That's in Cotton Essentials, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. So we have some of these tanks. So here we didn't have pictures, so you'd have to check out the website to find nicer photos of the clothing. But it's just the same way you can work the forms the exact same way on every single sheet. We have underwear. That's exciting too. Not having chemicals on your favorite parts will be exciting. And then these accessories, like I said, I'm not a sock person. And when we were coordinating with the salesperson, account manager, Jessica, I asked her if we could include some more products. And these are some seasonal items that we've included. So we have these infinity scarves. Yes. Leg warmers, and the mittens look really cute. And now that I know they're hand dyed, that makes them even more appealing.
Baby socks.
And baby socks. Yeah. So that's everything this time. So if anybody has questions or
Bena, do you have anything you'd like to highlight or anything that's particularly popular?
Let's go back to cotton socks for a second. That one right there is our best-selling sock ever. That's the one we hand tie-dye. It's just a basic crew. So it's nothing fancy. There's no cushion. It's just a mid-calf high sock. And people swear by them. It has the highest organic content of any of our socks. It's between 92 and 99% because we lost one. It's been such a year with COVID. We lost a supplier of a special yarn. So they may come in at 92% this year, but they're usually 98, 99. So tie-dyes, we've sold more tie-dye socks through our 29 years than anything else. But if you also scroll up, I think at the top, you had the dress socks on the cotton. Keep going.
Yes.
So that first one there, it's hard to see, but it's a really nice dress sock. because it has cushion only on the bottom half of your foot. So you can still get it in a nice tight fitting shoe. And it's a mid-calf height, and it's got a very subtle herringbone pattern to it with some nice color in the background. So it's like a basic dress sock, but it's got a little more flair to it. And those have just done really well, mainly because of the cushion on the foot. I think those are the two on cotton that I would call your attention to. I mean, can you scroll down again? I forget what you guys, oh, the rag socks, the next one down. This is just a heathered slouchy sock. We launched them as a back to school sock for teenage girls, right? And then GQ last year did a big spread on the best selling socks for men, best socks for men, and they ranked these as the best eco socks out there. So what do I know, right? So
That's great.
The top row is just a lighter color, kind of heathered. And then we started over dyeing them this year and making them darker and brighter. And they're just super comfy, super, slouchy.
Can I do a plug for my favorite? I think
yes, please.
They're down below on this page as well. I have the ones that are the I forget what they're called, but the shortest ones.
Hoodies.
Shortest.
The footy. Yeah, the footies. So I have them in black and then in the natural color.
Footy.
And so the ones, those are cushioned. You just went past them, right there.
Those ones. So those are my favorite.
Yeah, those are cushioned all over your feet, and they also have that little gripper on your arch so that they stay in place. And the ones on the bottom, except for the star ones, those are a biodiversity give back. So we actually are giving 10% of the sale to a group that does biodiversity stuff. I forget the name of the group, but it's right on the sock. And so they're little turtles and dragonflies and stuff like that. Those are very popular. Thank you, Rachel. And then wool socks, if you want to go to wool socks. Oh, and compression, for anybody who does wear compression socks, because they're all the rage now, like runners and everyone's wearing them. Our compressions are a light compression. They're not a medical grade, but they are graduated, and they're just they work really well if you're not, if you don't have to have that extra tightness from medical grade. And they're just nice patterns and super comfy. And they have the cushion foot as well. So, okay, so can you go to wool for a minute?
Yeah. Oh, that diabetic.
So these are all washable organic merino wool. I have lots and lots of stories from people who say, I can't wear wool, don't give me wool. My skin goes crazy, and they can wear our socks. We don't have a doctor endorsement, but I want to believe that it's because of the chemicals not being added to the sheep and during the processing. So anyway, this is our best selling wool sock, which is a classic thick hiker. And again, we had it in the light colors all up until this year. And then we added the darker overdye colors, and those have just taken off like crazy, gone really, really popular. They're just, a lot of people wear them as slipper socks around the house. Socks are not supposed to be shoes, but we all wear them as shoes. And then if you keep going down, yeah, right. If you keep going down, then we have that's the same one. It's just a 2-pack. So you get a light and a dark in the same pack. These knee socks were closing out, but they've been really popular as well. We just trade styles out every few years. So they're just a nice cotton wool blend. There's no cushion or anything. They're just patterns, and they do come all the way up to your knee. So those are nice. But if you keep going down to those ones somebody mentioned earlier, that's a light hiker. I wear those to run in all the time. Keep going to the snuggles. So these, we only do these. Yeah. So we only do these seasonally, like we do them every fall, winter, and then we sell out of them, and then we get new designs for next year. And this year's designs our designer did instead of our product developer, and she just did a really nice job, and they've sold so well. We ordered twice as many as last year, and we're already running out of some of them. So, but I'd like to call your attention to the snuggle style, because if you have any kind of issues with instep circulation where you don't like a sock to be tight at the top, these have what's called a roll top. They stay up. It's not about them slouching into your feet, but they don't have that tightness on them. So they're just super comfortable. They're super cushy, and they're cushy all over your foot and leg. There's just, we actually do them in cotton, and we call them recovery socks because we've used them for people recovering from chemo and all that stuff. And they're just very, very soothing. And of course, very warm. So, I don't know if anyone has questions. I can answer any questions.
I was just because I think these look great, and I think we want to make sure that we remind people how to sign up for this. So this is the order form right here, and Rachel has shared in the chat, and I think we'll just share one more time. We have a form to sign up to receive this. So all you have to do is give us your name and your email address, and then we will send you an individualized form. And when you receive the form, just like we saw, just go through, find the styles you like, add your tick mark to the quantities you want for each style, and then follow the payment instructions. We'll accept both personal check and what we call Venmo, for those who know, which is like a digital payment too. So we're going to set the deadline to receive these orders the weekend after Thanksgiving, which I believe is around November 28th or so. So the order form should go out later this evening or tomorrow if you sign up, and you can start shopping. And of course, you can follow up with any questions that you have. And I think we're all really excited to get some socks for the season. So it'll be really great.
So
can I just do one plug?
Yes.
I can't tell you how much, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when buying clubs in food were really happening. And the reason the organic food industry and the natural food industry grew like it did was because of these very kind of buying club things where people are shopping in their homes and they're supporting causes and they're getting direct relationships with people who make products and grow products. And I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this, and I just hope you do it for eternity, with every brand.
We hope so too. Yeah,
really, because it's a way to beat the system, the corporate system. And come on, we're all activists at heart, or we wouldn't be here, right? So your voice is really important, and it's really important to us to hear from you. Like if you get a sock and you don't like it, we want to know. If you have a question, we want to know, why don't you do this? Why do you do this? Because you're our direct link to getting better and making our products better. So just applaud you for doing it. That's all.
Thank you for sharing that encouragement. It certainly validates these efforts that we have, and it's really exciting. So we will certainly continue to try and do more buying clubs. This is how we do want to support more fair trade brands and get more fair trade products in the hands of people. So on that note, hopefully
I do have a question.
You do have a question?
Yes, before we.
Yeah.
I'm looking, even I'm confused with the order.
Okay, go for it.
Me too.
Okay.
So do we go to this? You send us a link.
So everyone's going to be sent this form. So it'll show up in your email inbox, and all you have to do is then click on the link, and it'll bring you to this page. Yeah. Oh, sorry. This form, yes. So this is the form you're just going to sign up for. You just need to fill out your name, email address, and phone number. And then we will send you that more robust form here, where you then go shopping and fill it all out.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, should we have like a little tech support channel or something like that?
Yeah. So if you have questions, we'll give you the email address where you can reach out to us if you're having difficulty filling it out. If you're familiar with using Excel as a program or the tables, it's effectively just a word sheet like that. So
yeah, you essentially, can we show them real quick? So essentially you just go here.
It's a view only right now.
Oh, view only. So you gotta, and that's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's okay.
Sorry.
So you go here, just fill out how many you need.
Your request, and then you'll get permission really quick.
Okay.
And
yeah, let's just show them real quick. Okay.
I think that's helpful too.
Yeah.
And the FTPHL people, I will be sending you the invitation part first.
Yeah.
If only you are interested in, this is 30% off, but the workers are paid in full, of course.
Yeah. And while we wait for the form, I wanted to give another plug for Maggie's clothing too. I know I was talking about being a big fan of the socks, but I have a few dresses and actually happened to put this kind of sweater-like item on today that's from Maggie's accidentally. I think it was top of mind. Just happened to want to wear it today. So yeah, so it's really nice. I love this. This is from probably a few years ago at this point. So
Rachel,
yeah.
Could you pull it up on your form? Because right now only has a view format. And
Yes,
I
have it
better-
open, so I can do that.
Yeah, I think it's worth.
Sorry, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Stop.
Okay,
I'm a
so
Teams guy. Not a
Yeah.
Zoom guy.
Thank you, everyone.
great.
Wow.
Can you see it here?
Yes, right here. No, yes,
No,
we
no,
do,
no.
but
Okay.
not on my. No, we see it. I had just moved.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Great.
This is right. This is her. Right
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Rachel, you can go through and toggle the different orders.
Yeah, so you can see here, I selected if I wanted this dress sock in navy in medium. I do the drop down, select one. There, it'll show the total and units, and then you can go through and shop everything that you want. Maybe you want 2 of something, different colors, everything's here. And then when you go back to the first page, it'll show you the summary. You're going to want to fill this out as well. And then you can also see the items down below here. So we can make sure we have everything for you.
And then that's it, right? Doesn't have to do any submit button.
Nope.
Nothing. Just fill it
No,
out.
because we'll have access to it. So yeah, so as long as just make sure to do everything by the date, and we'll share the date that we're aiming to for that.
Is this the price that's 30% off already, or is
Yes.
this? Yeah.
Yes, so this is the 30% off, and then this is the amount that you saved down here if you want to take a look.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cool. Yes. Well, thank you again, Bena, for giving us such a wonderful presentation and teaching us about Maggie's.
So I'm sorry.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
I got one more question. Yeah.
How do we send them that? How they can get to that submission page?
The,
Request for the form.
so
How they get
that's the link has been shared in the chat here.
Okay.
We're going to share it again through our newsletter, and Yoko will also be sharing the request form through the FTPHL group as well. So
Okay.
there
that's
will
fine.
be ample ways to receive and request this order form.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanna
Yeah,
make
so
sure.
the first
Yeah.
form is to
That'll be nice.
sign up to receive this order form. So we make sure everyone will get their own, and then that way, we can tally everything and get our order.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, then again, thank you again for everyone for staying
Yeah.
and for joining. And Bena, thank you so much for
Thank
a
you.
great
Thank
presentation.
you guys so much.